Hey there, my name is Karolina Jadkowalska, and I'm an alcohol-free life coach and author of the book Euphoric Ditch Alcohol and Gain a Happier, More Confident You. And I have a really great student question today about coming out with your alcohol-free lifestyle and being worried that that could have repercussions in your life of people judging you or people thinking that, you're unstable or something. And so today we're really going to talk about that. Before I do, though, I just want to see how you're doing and if you've been reading the book, if you're enjoying it. If you read the book and it really helped you or just see a different way of thinking or helped you get some tools under your belt, I would just so love and appreciate if you could leave a review on Amazon. So basically, the way Amazon works is that when people are searching for alcohol-free or sober, all those kinds of words, your book will only show up if it has so many reviews. And so right now we have a goal to get to 100 reviews. And if you could help me with that goal, I would be forever grateful for you. So if you leave a review, it could be just 1 or 2 sentences with your experience with the book. It would be so helpful because then when other women are looking for a book that will help them go alcohol-free without attaching it to a label or a stigma or some kind of dogmatic framework, my book will come up for them. And so, I always just think of the past version of me, of the woman that I was, and the book that I was looking for, and this book was it. I was not looking for an AA meeting. I was not looking for some dogmatic recovery framework. I wanted a book that really honored my intuition and the fact that alcohol just wasn't serving me any longer and that I wanted to try something new. And I think that anyone deserves that permission to be able to just say, hey, this is actually a toxic substance. What if my life was better without it, without any of that judgment or those labels? And so if you have read the book and if it's helped you and it's touched you or you're reading the book, I would just so greatly appreciate your review. All right, onwards to today's question from a client that I received. So just so you know, I go live every Wednesday at 8 a.m. And you're free to watch these lives. You're free to get the information as you need it and really, have it help you. But if you want to ask a question, if you want to be part of that dialogue, it's reserved for my students and my clients. If you'd like to become a student or a client, you can check out my programs at my website or my coaching, and you can find that all at euphoricaf.com. And I'd love to talk to you. If you have any questions, you can always just book a discovery call and we can talk about any options that would be feasible for you, because I have programs and offers that literally span the whole gamut of a journey towards an alcohol-free lifestyle, from the very beginning, towards your first break, to really navigating this new identity socially, to then really starting to find a new passion and purpose, and then even business coaching for new alcohol-free coaches or other business owners who are really like, wow, I've changed my life. I want to, really grow a business now because I have so much more motivation, energy, confidence, and just belief in myself to be able to do it. Okay, so then to this question is really coming from that angle is I want to start talking about my sobriety and helping people online, but I'm scared that that would make me unhirable. Now, whether or not you want to help people ever go alcohol-free yourself or you just want to be able to come out, I think this is a really, really good topic because for so long with the old-fashioned model, the old-fashioned recovery model, it was really based on anonymity. Okay, that's a weird word, anonymity, being anonymous, right? That was what the model was really about. And so you really didn't really talk about, being alcohol-free. And a lot of people in town would just, nobody knew about it. That's kind of how, being alcohol-free for literally almost 100 years, that's how it went. And so nowadays, we have sober influencers and we have bloggers and we have Instagrammers and we have coaches and we have people that really want to come out and help people, or just something that you share even with your friends and family, or something that you just want to share across the board, maybe on social media to make it easier so that you're not always asked at every single event, why you're not drinking. And so I think this question is actually pertinent for a lot of us, whether or not we actually want to help someone eventually become alcohol-free ourselves, or just want to publicly talk about being alcohol-free. So you might be ready to come out on Facebook or social media. I know it's so silly that that's the way we come out these days, but we live in this technological time. That's how we usually share news with people, right? When you get married, you obviously have a wedding, but then you also might change your Facebook status and share pictures from the wedding. So it's just how we share news these days. And you might be considering sharing news like that to your personal Facebook feed, or maybe starting a new Instagram account or something around sobriety, or you might want to be, maybe you're stepping into the role of a coach and you really want to help people, but really, talking about your story and talking about you as a person, you're scared that the wrong people will find out, right? So oftentimes when we make a change like this, going alcohol free, we eventually get to a point where we share it with our family, we share it with our friends, maybe we share it with some acquaintances. But the wrong people finding out is probably what we think of as our employer, or other kind of maybe business networks, or other ways in our professional life. We're scared that if people found out that we are no longer drinking, or that we're talking about alcohol free or sobriety, that's going to mean something, negative about us. And so this very question is actually around, I want to start sharing online and I want to start helping people, but I'm scared that maybe not only I would get fired, right? Like maybe some people are in a position where they actually fear that if I start talking about this, my job will fire me because they're going to think I was an alcoholic or something, right? Which is totally illegal, by the way. Or at the same time, like maybe you fear that if you start talking about this, you're going to kind of burn like a scarlet letter onto your chest. And so when future opportunities come up and people Google you, especially if you have like a online presence, if people Google you, they'll just not hire you for a job or something like that. And so I totally get this fear. I think it's very real. And it's not, everyone's situation is different. But let's talk through a few mindset shifts that we can have around this phenomenon so that we can actually boldly be who we really are, share what we really want to share from our hearts, and help people, and actually deconstruct this myth that only a certain number of people have issues with alcohol in our world. It's almost every drinker, okay, right? And I'm so adamant about that because it frustrates me that we've for so long been like, oh, that's a problem drinker, that's a normal drinker. Everyone's relationship with alcohol, usually when they're drinking regularly, is problematic because the substance is problematic, right? Most people don't drink under the health guidelines. It's almost impossible. And like, that's just what irks my gears is like, to what extent does someone have a problem? Obviously, we have the stereotypes of really, really, really massive problems of people drinking every day in the morning. But I just find that most people aren't really there. Most people are kind of in that gray area, in that kind of murky middle area. And guess what? When you stop drinking in that space, like you're the one who stopped drinking and everyone else probably around you, your neighbors, your, school's teacher, all the people are still drinking that way. And all of a sudden you're the one with the problem because you stopped drinking a toxic substance that causes cancer and heart disease. Like it just makes no sense to me, right? And I'm really adamant about that. But when you do that, and you do want to share online, but you're really scared of old school judgments, old school mentalities, people labeling you, people thinking that maybe you're unstable or that you're just, maybe you have really big issues and you think that you're going to be unhirable in the future. Let's now talk about that. So first of all, it's really important to know that you don't owe anybody your story. Oftentimes there's this idea that when you come out and you say to people, I'm not drinking anymore, I'm alcohol free, that the world deserves your memoir and that you have to write every single embarrassing, horrible thing that's ever happened to you. And that's hogwash, okay? Like, just because you come out as being alcohol free doesn't mean you have to share the most raw, vulnerable, embarrassing, shameful experiences of your life. Like, nobody is owed that. You don't owe that to anybody. And I say this too when people socialize, because oftentimes you might say you're not drinking, and all of a sudden some random acquaintance that you don't even know really started asking you questions about it, like, oh, do you have a problem? Or like, you don't owe anyone that. You don't owe anyone your story. You don't have to be like, well, yes, like last night or 2 nights ago or 10 weeks ago, I drank too much and I fell asleep and my kids were, you don't have to share those kind of stories. That's not anyone's prerogative, right? And so you don't owe anyone your story. And going alcohol free, it is a lifestyle choice. That's probably the healthiest lifestyle choice. You don't have to explain it beyond that, right? And I really believe that because the more permission we get to be able to go alcohol free without having to explain it to people, the more people will feel that it's an acceptable lifestyle choice and will stop getting 21 questions around it, right? So when you're coming out, you don't have to share with your entire story. Like, I don't know if you've seen my book. If you're reading my book, Euphoric, Ditch Alcohol and Gain a Happier, More Confident You, I obviously wrote a book and I share a lot of my anecdotes in the book, right? I share some stories. Some of them are embarrassing, sure. But I share a lot of my process of going alcohol free and the epiphanies I had, and also a lot of tips and just different mindset reframes. It's not a book of like, hey, this is every embarrassing thing that's ever happened to me in my life, and this is my shame-induced stories. Now, I know that genre was really popular for a while, where people would just like bare all and tell like the grimiest stories about, their drinking experiences. But I just want you to know that just because like people used to write books like that, that doesn't mean that when you come out as alcohol free, you have to tell people anything you don't want to tell them. Okay? Like your vulnerability is something that I think, Brené Brown says that when we hide, our shame, we often make it more shameful because we're like literally telling ourselves, this is not acceptable. You are not allowed to have these experiences, right? But she also really differentiates who you share it with. So it's great to be vulnerable with a coach or maybe a dear friend or a mentor or a group of ladies or men who are really on the same journey with you. That is a beautiful place to be vulnerable because people hold space for your vulnerability. That doesn't mean you have to be vulnerable with everyone, right? And Brené Brown is actually really famous for saying not everyone deserves your vulnerability. Because some people will trash your vulnerability. Some people will take it and stamp on it, right? So your employer or your boss or your future employers, they don't deserve to hold your vulnerabilities, right? So again, you don't have to share your entire, this is the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to me, stories when you go public. And number two is that we have to remember that for so long, we are taught that the only type of people who take a break from alcohol or go alcohol-free are in recovery and are sober and are in AA, and maybe they went to rehab and maybe they got a DUI and maybe something horrible happened in their lives. And so right now, when you stop drinking, oftentimes it's met with 21 questions of like, well, what happened or something like that. And that's ridiculous to me because alcohol is one of the most unhealthiest things we could possibly ingest in the course of our day, right? It is so unhealthy for us. It causes cancers, it causes heart disease. Not even one glass of wine is good for your heart. That has been completely debunked. The World Health Federation is now saying a glass of wine is bad for your heart and causes cardiovascular disease. Like alcohol has no health benefits and it is only tied to a lower lifespan and more health risks over time. So what kind of person elects to stop drinking? Any type of person, literally, right? Like it doesn't matter what your drinking pattern or your story or your consumption level was. You could be a heavy drinker, you could be a medium drinker, you could be a moderate drinker, you could be a light drinker. Anyone deserves to redecide whether or not the substance has merit in their life and to move forward and try it without it. And if we're not willing to show that that's the new reality, then the old way will predominate. The old way of thinking will just always be the way it is. And so it is up to us to show other people what's possible and that everyone deserves permission to reevaluate the role of alcohol in their lives. Because if not us, if not our generation, and by our generation I really mean the people alive today as adults, if not our generation, then our kids will grow up with that same pressure to drink every time you go on a social occasion. That's the thing. Think about how cigarettes function. Back in the day, cigarette smoking used to be so prevalent. Everybody did it. It was just such a normal part of life. And that really changed to today, to 2022. Like, I live in California. I don't know anyone who smokes anymore, right? And so when I go out somewhere, when I go to a dinner or a party or even like a really crazy night out at a club or a concert, nobody expects that I'm going to smoke cigarettes. They might offer, maybe someone offers me, but when I say no or, I just don't do it, it's not a big deal. And no one actually expects that I would have in the first place, right? Everybody has a choice around that. People can choose to smoke if they want to, but it's not an expectation of me being at that event. You see what I mean? And yet right now with drinking, that's not the case. When you go out, there is an expectation that you will drink if you're out socially. Whether you're out literally at a rager or you're literally out at a like grandma's barbecue, right? It doesn't matter whether how tame or how wild the experience is, we have this expectation that one drinks socially. And until we are the generation that changes that and makes it okay to opt out of that, our children will grow up with this. Our children will grow up with that expectation, that pressure. It will continue to be a rite of passage, and then this habit that's unconscious and so glamorized in our society for decades and decades and decades, unless we're the one that changes that. And so if you are interested in coming out, if you are interested in sharing your story about being alcohol-free, if you want to help people online, and you have these fears of people judging you, first of all, it's very normal to feel like that. I was scared too. But second of all, if we are not the ones that change the dialogue around being alcohol free, who will? Right? If we don't give permission to ourselves that it's an acceptable lifestyle choice to be alcohol free, that it doesn't mean anything's wrong with you, that it doesn't mean you have a character defect, that there's no willpower or self-control missing with you, that you weren't some unstable person, but that you just formed a relationship with alcohol as everyone around you did, as is normal to do in our society, and whether you had some experiences that showed you that isn't making you happy, we all had these, right? And I think that's the thing, is that when we go through it alone, we think we're the only one. And when we come out and it's like, wow, having a complicated relationship with alcohol is the most common thing a drinker can face. And I'm so adamant about that, because until we normalize it, until we make it really just the acceptable truth, we're going to continue to blame the drinker, not the drink. Now, the drink has some real big problems with it, right? It's addictive. It changes our brain chemistry. It changes our brain neural pathways. It's glamorized in our society. It's thought of as a rite of passage. The alcohol industry gets away with so freaking much. I mean, they don't even have to label the bottle that it causes cancer, right? When will that ever change? And so we have to be the ones to stand up to that. So when you're scared that, maybe coming out will make you unhirable, or maybe will make it kind of fishy with your normal job right now, like, sometimes you need to just put on this rebellious hat and just really think to yourself, this is a proud choice. Like, I am the one who stopped drinking. And the thing is that most people drink very similar amounts. And we sometimes don't know that. We think we're the only ones that are drinking like that. No, your colleagues are drinking like that too. And your neighbors too. And everyone has a drinking pattern, right? That drinks normally and regularly. And so if you're the one who stops drinking at your work, wouldn't you be like the most productive? Wouldn't you be the one that has the most energy? Like, you were not the problem because you stopped drinking. Anyone who's still drinking would be the ones with the problem, right? We have to start changing the way we think about it. And so, really being productive and really having that energy and really showing what you're capable of can be so cool too when you are employed, to show that what a win it is. Some of the biggest movers and shakers of our worlds don't drink. Like, we need to start wearing that as a point of pride, not as a point of embarrassment. And so, maybe you come out and you're worried that other future people won't hire you. And the thing is that, yes, there probably are very small-minded people out there who just think that you hear about someone who quit drinking and you think of, oh gosh, they must have had some big issues or something like that. I mean, that's an assumption that someone's making. And the thing is like, we can't control the stories that people make up in their heads. We can't control those, right? I mean, I cannot control what people think of me. I really can't, right? But the thing that also matters the most is, do their opinions matter to your self-worth? Do their opinions matter? If one company is so small-minded that they wouldn't hire someone who quit drinking, is every company out there in the world like that? Are there not now like literally millions and millions of people who are alcohol free, and maybe they're running companies and want to hire you, right? Like, there's so many possibilities here. I mean, a recent Gallup poll showed that 4 out of 10 Americans stopped drinking. We're literally getting down to like almost half of the people in this nation. I mean, this is a movement. It is so big. There are so many celebrities, and there's so much talk, and there's just so much going on in this alcohol-free movement. It is changing the fabric of society, and it will eventually trickle into the areas that are needed in the most. And so I just want to give someone a lot of hope for coming out, because one, it gives other people permission. It gives other people permission to reevaluate the role of alcohol in their lives, to ask yourself if this substance is truly making me happy, and to really take a stand for this permission that anyone deserves to ask themselves if alcohol is serving them, and then make an intuitive choice whether or not that's the case. Right now, we don't have a choice. Right now, we start drinking as teenagers for the most part, and then live in a world that glamorizes alcohol and pushes it down our throat every single social occasion we'll ever go to. Right now, we don't have a choice, right? It is just the fabric of our world, and the ones who don't drink are the ones who are stared at like they have two heads. We need to be the ones that change that. We need to be the generations that change that for our kids. And I know it's really scary, so I'll share a little bit of my personal story before I hop off. But so when I went alcohol free, I, for a few months, I was really growing and learning and journaling, and then I started meeting more people in the alcohol free space, and that really helped me get more confident. And then I launched a website. And so I launched a website, I worked on it for like a month, and then I was ready to share it with the world. I wanted to help people go alcohol free themselves. I wanted to write about it, give advice, get certified as a coach. And so I shared my website, and I decided to share it on Facebook and Instagram. And so was friends with all of my colleagues from my work, on Facebook. So many people at my job, and I had a job as I was working and building my business for about 1.5 years until I went full time to coaching. When I shared it, when I pressed that button, I remember how nervous I felt. And then I just got this outpour of other people who were like, me too, or that was so brave, or oh my gosh, like, thank you for speaking this truth. Like, the reception was really, really positive. And so I continued to build my business and really talk about the alcohol-free lifestyle. And I had my job for 1.5 years before I went full time into being a coach. And so people even knew, some people at work knew me because they were alcohol-free themselves, and they found me because of a sober account, right? And other people just knew about it because I started talking about it more on the online space. And, eventually I got a book deal, and I started going on TV, and just this week, my past employer was actually where I got my MBA. And so just this past week, they featured me in a story about being alcohol-free and the book I wrote. And literally everyone I worked with, hundreds of people that I've sat in meetings with and that I worked with, have probably seen and looking at this article now. And obviously there's a part of me that's I can't control the opinion or the story that they'll make up in their head, but I can take a stand for what I believe in. I can take a stand for this alcohol-free lifestyle and the potential and the transformation I believe is possible for other people. And I wonder how many people are reading my article right now from my old employer and are actually nodding their heads and being like, wow, I totally feel like this too. And I'm giving them permission to reevaluate an old habit that isn't serving them any longer. We have to be the change we want to see in the world. And so I know this is kind of like a pep talk about being braver, but it's also a mindset shift. It's a mindset shift that, being alcohol-free is one of the healthiest things you could possibly do for your body, mind, and soul. We cannot keep talking about this as a problem or something that needs to be fixed or something that only certain people go through. Most people have complicated relationships with alcohol. If they are regular drinkers and they grew up in this society, that's usually the way it is. Sometimes you don't know that. Some people go out to an event and only have one drink, and they drink at home. I've talked to those people, right? I work with them. I've heard all the stories. You know what I mean? So you have no idea ever what's going on behind closed doors. No idea. And if it's not alcohol, it's usually something else. So let's take the judgment and the fear off and really imagine that when we speak our truths, we blaze the way. And just a quick reminder, as I said at the beginning of this video, you don't owe anyone your story. Just because you come out as alcohol-free doesn't mean you have a Rolodex now of all of your most embarrassing, shameful stories that you have to share with the world. That is not true. You get to share with people what you want to share. You get to be vulnerable with the people who will honor and hold space for your vulnerability, not the people who will trash it. You get to decide what is said about you or what you say about yourself. You get to own your own story. And if other people want to put you in a little box, you can obviously correct them, in that moment, or you can let them believe whatever they want to believe. And just know that when people are not living their dream lifestyle, when they're not doing what you want to do, their opinion doesn't matter. When your random uncle tells you something mean and he's living not his best life, his opinion doesn't matter. The opinion of people who matter to you should be the ones who are aspirational to you and who are really doing the thing you want to do. All those other people are just noise and probably even sharing the discontent of the unfulfillment that they feel in their lives. All right, so that's another topic for another day. Thank you so much for asking this question. I think it's so relevant. So whether you want to help people online yourself as an alcohol-free coach, or whether you want to just come out on social media, or you want to just start telling more people, and you're worried about your reputation, honestly, you're worried about what people will say or think about you. You're worried, especially in the professional realm, what your colleagues, what your employer, or what your future employers will think. I think this was a really good question and something that's going to come up for a lot of people. So thank you so much for asking. And like I said earlier, I go live every Wednesday at 8 a.m. to answer questions. And if you have a question, you have to be enrolled in the course or my coaching programs, But if you're interested in joining anything, please do look at euphoricaf.com. You'll see courses for you if you want to take an 8-week break. You'll see courses for you if you want to become more emboldened in your alcohol-free identity. And you'll also see coaching programs with me where we work together on really navigating this and actually building your potential beyond what you ever believed is possible. So just go check it out. And if you have any questions, you can always book a discovery call. Thank you so much for joining today. I'm rooting for you. I think we are building something incredible here. We are changing culture. We are building a movement, you and me. And you're very special to me. And I think that your intuition has led you here and led you to this lifestyle. And I just believe in you so freaking much and what we're going to do together. So thanks for joining.